So this is, as you can see, Yair Lootsteen. He visited with us last year when Arnie retired. And I just want to give you a quick intro, which is that I don't believe this is your second year of a 3-year term as chairperson. I don't know what year you're in.
I'm in the fifth of sixth.
Okay. For the IMPJ.
Or the sixth of six.
The
But who's
6th of
counting?
6th. Born in London, which is fascinating, grew up in Toronto, made Aliyah in 1979, has a really, really interesting military service, which I would love to hear more about someday. And since completing that, has invested much of his time on issues related to Jewish pluralism in Israel, served as president of Kehillat Kol HaNishamah, which our congregation visited on at least one of our Israel trips, the largest Reform congregation in Jerusalem. And I don't know if you're still serving, you're still on the board of Artzeinu. Artzeinu, yes. And also is a board member of the Jewish National Fund, KKL. And if you could please describe all these abbreviations that we use, because as American Jews, we're just not up to it on it, up to date.
All right, I'm happy to do so. Am I ready to go?
You're ready to go. Thank you so much.
All right. So first of all, Shavua Tov to all of you. It's a pleasure and an honor, and it almost brought tears to my eyes when I heard at the beginning of this morning when you were asked how many of you have voted, and almost everyone put up their hands. And from my point of view, that is our partnership. Your ability to understand the importance of these elections for you, but mostly for us here in Israel. And it's your way of influencing what happens in Israel. So as I didn't see who introduced me, so you'll forgive me, but I am the chair of the Israeli Reform Movement, the IMPJ, and I also serve, and I've been doing that for almost 6 years. My second 3-year term ends at during this coming summer. And I've had the honor of being at the helm of the Israeli Reform Movement for almost the last 6 years, through tumultuous days and very turbulent days, from COVID through democratic crises to the war and many other things in between. And I want to say a few words about how I arrived at this on this journey. And like the person who introduced me mentioned, I think it was Amy. Was that Amy who introduced me? If not, then I apologize for getting that wrong. But before I do so, I just want to introduce another fellow that you might be able to see on the side of the screen. Is my friend Mike Nitzan. Mike Nitzan is here from Kibbutz Lotan in the Arava. He is originally from LA and made Aliyah about the same time I made Aliyah. And Mike is one of the founding members of the kibbutz. He's a real chalutz, a real pioneer who helped set up Kibbutz Lotan in the Arava, one of several reform kibbutzim in the state of Israel. And he right now is running our Israeli World Zionist Congress election campaign to ensure that the members of our communities in Israel get in touch with and our rabbis and our presidents, get in touch with folks like yourselves, but also friends and family members, to ensure that they too take part in these elections, because we at the IMPJ and the folks at Artza and in other places around the world understand that it is so important for us, the IMPJ, we Reform Jews, that folks like yourself take part in these elections. And so we're taking these elections very, very seriously. So let me tell you a little bit about, you heard about me. I was in the legal department in the Military Advocate General's Corps for 25 years. Completed my term of duty as a colonel, and my last job was the legal advisor to the IDF in the West Bank. And since then, about a week after I got out of before that, but one of the first jobs that one of the tasks that I had while in the military was being sent for a year to the U.S. Army's School of Law in Charlottesville, Virginia. And during that year, I was sent there with my family, and we wanted something Jewish in our lives besides the American Army experience, and joined the only Jewish show in town at the time, which was Congregation Bet-Israel with Rabbi Dan Alexander. I don't know if any of you folks have heard of him. And we had an incredible year in that synagogue in Charlottesville. And when we came back to Israel, we looked for something similar. And we joined Kol HaNishamah here in Jerusalem. And the rest is history, because about 10 minutes after I got out of the military, the president of that synagogue came to me and said, "We'd like you to join the board." And that was probably the biggest mistake I made in my life. Having decided to join the board, I said yes, and within a year I was the president of that synagogue. And 4 years later, I became deputy chair of the national movement, the IMPJ. And during that time, and since then, I was the deputy chair for a couple of years, for a couple of terms. And I've now, as I've mentioned, been chair of the movement for 6 years. But during the time that I was as a deputy chair, I was approached and asked if I wanted to join the Israeli team of Reform Jews in the national institution. And I think that it's important to understand what those national institutions are. But before I do that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the IMPJ and where we are today and the important things that we're doing. And I think that it's important for you. I heard it's a real honor for me, first of all, to be here. Arnie asked me to join you this morning, and I would do anything for Arnie. Arnie is perhaps the best friend that the IMPJ has anywhere. He is in our corner. He is the head of our Friends of the IMPJ, American Friends of the IMPJ. He does so much for us, and it's a real honor for me to be with you this morning, as it was almost a year ago in June, to be on that dais that I see in the picture of me at his farewell weekend. So, and it's even no smaller an honor to be following Rabbi Kineret Shirion, one of the true. If Mike is a pioneer in the Arava, Kineret is a real pioneer in Israeli Reform Judaism, and in many, many other ways, as a woman who has made a real mark on Israeli society, as someone who came from the United States and has made that mark. And I want to take the opportunity to say how honored I am to be following her this morning. So the IMPJ today, in my opinion, is punching well above its weight in Israeli society. We have 54 congregations, from all the way up north in Nahariya and Rosh Pina and Kiryat Shmona, all the way down to the kibbutzim of the Arava that Mike lives in, and many communities, large and small, all around the country: Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, Modi'in, Mevasseret Zion, and many smaller communities around the country. We have three vibrant Russian-speaking communities. We understand the need for Russian-speaking Olim from around the country who have arrived in the country and are not always welcomed with open arms by the authorities here, because people question their Judaism, and they are looking for Yiddishkeit and and Judaism in their lives, and we provide that for them. We provide conversion. We, in the last 2 years, have provided on a national level more than 10% of all conversions done in the country. Last year was almost 400 reform conversions. And those conversions, are recognized by the state for the purposes of the law of return. We are also we have a mechina, a pre-army gap year leadership program that runs in a wonderful spot in Jaffa and has a branch in the city of Cholon. We have a Tikkun Olam program called Keren Kayemet which does remarkable work around the country. I'm sure that most of you have heard of IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center, which takes its name in many senses, its English acronym from the RAC that you have, the American Reform Movement has in Washington. Excuse me, I'm going to take a gulp of something here. And we are doing amazing work fighting against racism, shared society, and I'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. We're fighting for our movement in the courts and in the streets. We have to fight often to get what is coming to us. We have to fight to have a semblance of, if all Orthodox rabbis in the country receive their salaries from the government, our rabbis weren't getting it, and we took it to the court and won. And as a result of that, some of our rabbis are also getting their salaries from the government. But those are not the only battles that we fight in the courts. We're fighting for Israeli democracy. On the day before this government was sworn in, my board decided that we were going to be part of the battle, the struggle to maintain Israel as a vibrant, truly democratic country. We were the only stream in Judaism in Israel to do so, and we are there to ensure that there is more than one way of being Jewish in the state of Israel. For you, it's a given. You understand that. In Israel, it's not a given, and we continue the fight for that on a daily basis. Since the war began, we have been remarkably busy. We have been dealing. Last night, I was at Hostage Square together with literally hundreds of Israelis at a Havdalah service run by 4 Reform rabbis. And from week to week, and we've been doing that since the second week of the war. There can be no victory in this war without the return of the hostages and the bodies of those who were abducted and killed or died while they were in captivity. That is a moral. There will be an eternal stain on any leader within our government who does not work for the return of those hostages. We have adopted hostages. We have communities that have hostages who are related to members, and I welcome you. I would welcome you with open arms to Hostage Square and other places to see the remarkable work we've done in that area. We've been working in shared society. We won an award from an organization called the Abraham Initiative, which deals with shared society in Israeli between Arabs and Jews, understanding that the day after is not only the day after in Gaza and not only the day after in Lebanon, but it's also the day after within the Green Line, within Israel, to understand that there is a need for us to be able to work together and live side by side with 20% of the people in this country who are not Jewish. And we have programs such as something called Shchenim, literally neighbors, in which some of our communities have families from our congregations who meet with similar families from communities within the Arab communities of the country. We have had other remarkable successes. We have interfaith programs, and I'm very, very proud of that. We were given this award as a result of the work that we've been doing for interfaith and shared society activities since the beginning of the war, something not to be taken for granted when there is an open atmosphere of animosity towards many of the people who are Arabs just because they're Arabs, but just because they're Christian Arabs or Muslim Arabs. Much of the activities that we do is done with the funding that we receive through the national institution. And I'm going to segue into the work of the national institution. And when we talk about the national institutions, we talk about the Jewish Agency for Israel, known by the acronym of JAFE, okay, which deals with a lot of things that relate to aliyah, immigration to Israel. But all the shinshinim. Have you had a shinshin in your community? Have you had one of the young people who comes in from Israel and works with the community for a year in their gap year before they go into the military? That the Jewish Agency deals with that. Another of the organizations is the WZO, the World Zionist Organization, which is important, which is essential for many other Zionist activities within the country. And I act today in the name of Artza and the other reform Zionist organizations in what is called KKL, Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, or the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. And that is not JNF USA. I know that some of you might have some questions about JNF USA, but KKL-JNF is an organization that is it deals with all the forestry issues in the country. It deals with water and irrigation, and it deals with creating a much more environmentally safe and country. I want to talk a little bit, and I can give you much more about. I will give you much more about KKL because I sit there as a deputy chair of the organization. But I wanted to also talk about what we get from sitting at that table. And Kinera talked about two things, and I want to reiterate them. One of them is by being around those Zionist tables, it gives us an opportunity to influence with our values and our beliefs what happens around that Zionist table. And I'll give you some examples of the things that we deal with. The other thing that we get through being on that table is also budget. And it's not a dirty word in a country where we have to fight for every shekel that we get from the government. We have to take them to court with our incredible legal team at Iraq. And someone asked if we're working together with the conservative movement. I can tell you that in the national institutions, we work hand in hand with the conservative movement. We are friends, we are partners, and we work together in the same faction. The numbers, first of all. Why do you need to take part in these elections? And what does it mean? Well, the World Zionist Congress is really sort of the parliament of the Jewish people. And what we find is that the way that there are 525 mandates to the World Zionist Congress, 200 of those are based on the distribution of Knesset members in the current Knesset. Okay? That means that today it would be based on the Knesset that we have today. Not a very good Knesset for our side of the political map. But the second largest number of mandates comes from the United States. And that is where it is essential that we do well in these elections. The numbers are daunting right now. And by the way, the other third, roughly, it's 200 from the Knesset, 152 from the United States, and the rest of the world, about 35 other countries, is 173 mandates. Those are large numbers, and we're going to continue the battles in those countries too. But I'm here to talk to you about the American Zionist movement elections that are taking place today and how important they are. They're the most important of the elections taking place around the world. The numbers have dropped, unfortunately, for Artza representation in the World Zionist Congress. If in 2015, Artza had 53 mandates, in 2020, although their numbers dropped, the number of people who voted for them rose, the number of mandates relatively speaking, dropped from 53 to 39. That's a major drop. It happened because there were many more people who voted in the last election, but this year the numbers are daunting. Okay, and I just got the latest numbers as of in 2020, all told, 123,575 people. Sorry, 123,575 people voted, all told, during 10 weeks of voting. As of Friday, 96,000 had already voted after 2.5 weeks. That means that there is it's a result of the war in Israel. It's a result of the politics and the battles that are taking place within Israeli society about the democratic nature of this country. And I think it also has to do with the fact that there is a lot of concern within the American Jewish community about what's happening in Israel. And so the numbers are very large. And we have very, very difficult rivals in these elections. I'll show you a video clip of one of them in a little bit, because I think it's important for you to understand what they think about us. What am I doing and my friends doing in the national institution? What am I doing as deputy chair of KKL, of Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael JNF? So to give you an example of some of the issues that we're dealing with is gender equality, of bringing women empowerment and bringing budgets for that within Israel and abroad. What we've now been able to do is start changing the equilibrium, and monies from organizations like Keren Kayemet are now going from Israel to Jewish communities around the world. So for instance, in 2025, on the issue of gender empowerment, we have developed a budget line of 2 million shekels. That's roughly $600,000 for women empowerment and the ability and their connection to their Zionism. That's not all reform, but we're fighting for part of that, those budgets to be for reform leadership programs for women. We have become, in Keren Kayemet, one of the most important environmental and climate conscious organizations in the country. We're on the vanguard of desertification of the country, and we're teaching countries around the world to do that. We've raised the budget on climate from Keren Kayemet from 5 million shekels when this term in 2020 began to almost 100 million shekels a year this year. We're building major projects to deal with climate change centers that is now on the verge of being opened near the Sea of Galilee. Bedouin tree planting. There's complaints that Keren Kayemet plants trees too close to Bedouin communities in the Negev. I have been involved personally in ensuring that there is no confrontation between Jews and who are or between Keren Kayemet and those tree planting and the Bedouins who live in the Negev, to ensure that the trees that are planted are far away enough from the living communities of those Bedouins. We have stopped land purchases over the Green Line. There was an attempt to renew those land purchases about 6 years ago. We got wind, and that was done clandestinely. We got wind of that, and through our political power, the political power that you provide us, we were able to say, this is not going to happen. And as of this speaking, of this writing, there has not been a renewal of purchases of land over the Green Line. Without myself being at the table as one of the board members and as a deputy chair, we have 4 of 37 board members who are reform. Without us being there, we would not have the clout to be able to push that policy. Education. We're developing education for pluralistic Jewish education within Israel and for pluralistic Jewish leadership, Zionist leadership education outside of Israel. and we're succeeding with that. And again, none of this could be done without your help. I want to show you a clip now. I hope it comes up, and tell me whether you hear it. I'm going to share something, and you'll forgive the shock value of this, but you just have to understand who our rivals are. Tell me if you see this. Can you see this?
Care about Eretz Yisrael? Of course you do. You have visited here dozens of times. You daven for Eretz Yisrael every day. You may have learned in yeshiva here. You may have children who learn in yeshiva here right now. You may even live here. Perhaps you give tzedakah here in Eretz Yisrael. You may even own an apartment here. If you really care, then we need your help. Did you know that there's a small group of Jews living outside of Israel? And I'm not talking about Torah Jews like you and me, that have tremendous control over many critical issues here in Eretz Yisrael that impact Klal Yisrael every single day. This is something that most frum Jews don't know about, but really need to hear. This small group has a major influence in what happens at the Kaisel. Who can convert to Yiddishkeit, public transportation on Shabbos, kashrut standards in Eretz Yisrael, yeshiva bachim serving in the army, and even kosher cell phones, and much, much more. You are invested and involved in Eretz Yisrael, but you are powerless in the biggest decisions that affect it, all because of a small group of Jews in America that has too much power. Will you just stand by and let that happen? Are you ready to change that? Before the State of Israel was established, the WZO was created in order to focus on the creation of a Jewish state. When the State of Israel came into being in 1948, the WZO transitioned into an extremely powerful entity that represents world Jewry's position on key issues. The WZO consists of major Israeli organizations and agencies, like the KKL, the Jewish National Fund, which buys and develops the land of Israel, and the Jewish Agency, which oversees Aliyah activities. Today, the JNF is not just about planting trees in Israel. The Jewish Agency is no longer just about bringing Jews and encouraging them to make Aliyah. Today, these major Israeli organizations have been pushing a hidden agenda that gets imposed on Israeli society every single day. And all of their activities, strategies, and budgets are all controlled by the World Zionist Congress. It's time to stop letting major decisions about Eretz Yisrael be determined by people who oppose Torah values, people who don't appreciate or honor the Kedusha of our land. Every 5 years, the World Zionist Congress holds an open election to choose around 500 people to represent world Jewry, which infects every aspect of Israeli society. Over the past 30 years, the WZO has been taken over by left-wing groups who have ignored the cries of the Torah world to stop the harmful policies against our values, communities, and Mekaymes HaKadoshim. Finally, in 2020, under the guidance of our Gedolim, a small group championing Torah values and the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael mobilized major American frum communities and garnered enough votes to secure a significant role towards accurately representing diaspora Jewry in the World Zionist Congress. Now we are not silenced anymore, but we still have a long way to go. The World Zionist Congress continues to control powerful entities and to influence major decisions in Israel, and they claim to represent the Jews of America, including you. Do you want to continue to let them be your voice, or do you want your representatives to reflect your Torah values, priorities, and interests? It's up to you.
So did you manage to hear that? I can't hear you there, but I'm hoping that you managed to understand the rivals that we have and what they think about us as liberal Jews living in Israel and those of the liberal Jews living in America. It's those kind of rivals who came onto the front, onto the field, into the arena 5 years ago and made a major change, and they're trying to make further inroads into the AZM, the American Zionist Movement elections. They're trying to make inroads into the elections in other places around the world, and it's imperative that we bring out our vote in your communities. And I heard the rabbi, the folks speak Amy spoke, if I'm not mistaken, it was Amy at the beginning of this presentation, about the need not only for yourselves to vote, but it's the need for every one of you to go home and ask a friend, a relative, someone else to take that 5 minutes and the $5 it takes to vote and support what we all believe in, our beliefs, our interests, to ensure that we can continue doing the holy work that we are doing in the national institutions, that we are able, through the work of in the national institution, to also support the work that the Israeli Reform Movement is doing in Israel, and through the national institutions to bring back some of the funding to American and global Reform Judaism, and not only Reform Judaism, but to Jews around the world. It is a mitzvah to do this, and I implore you to continue your support for what we're doing. I'd be happy to answer questions if that you have any. I want to just say one other thing. Someone mentioned Keren mentioned something about funerals and the difficulty and the successes that she had. And it'll be my takeaway. On the first day of the war, on October 7th, a young man by the name of Yair Kaminka, a member of one of our synagogues in a small town called Tzur Hadassah, was killed in battle in a base called Zikim, not far from Ashkelon. He was a real hero. And his parents asked that he be buried in a reform ceremony. And this is part of the inroads that we're making, where we're punching above our weight in Israeli society.
We have time for one question, I think, at this time, of Rabbi Katz here. And does anybody have a question before we conclude our... Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Please finish the story.
Yeah, so the story was that Rabbi David Azulai from our community, from Kinneret's community in Modi'in, was asked to oversee the ceremony. He did it in the most remarkable way. He did it in the most inviting and cooperative way with the family. And people, the 1,000 people who came to that funeral were amazed to see a rabbi who is not a regular Israeli Orthodox rabbi running the ceremony. It is another way in which we have an ability to show that we are part of Israeli society and that we're deepening our influence on Israeli society. And it's through the national institutions that we can even further deepen that influence. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out this morning, and each and every one of you for the support that you have already given to Artza in these elections, or that you will be giving. Toda rabah and Shavua Tov to all of you. Happy to answer any questions if you might have, if there's enough time.